Live.
And we're back. 2 episodes in 1 week. It's been a month. So we're extremely happy about that.
Yeah.
And it's the Daenerys chapter, so that's even better. We'll get right to it today. I am Old New Dude. He is Richard.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
Sorry, I got away with myself there for a second.
That's all right. I'm Richard.
Doing 2 in 1 week has done blown my mind, so it'll take me a second to catch up. But yeah, we're doing Dany 5, Game of Thrones. Ooh, this is a good one. I like this one.
Yes, I described it as Dany destroys her first heart in a magical ceremony, and Viserys gets the crown that was promised.
All right. Well, if you've seen any of our videos, you'll know that Richard, the brains of the operation, will go through and write down and say what he saw in the chapter. Then I'll just jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. So, as usual, take it away, Richard.
Thank you, sir. I didn't pull all the bird symbolism, but we can, of course, I know you believe that the birds, every time the birds come up, are sort of indicative that Bran might be watching or something along those lines, right?
Yes.
Or the Great Other. I've really come around on the whole idea that there's two players. I think that's actually very heavily implied by like Arya's 3rd chapter and so forth. That where Dorcas says that this was never a game for 2 players, and I think it is a game for 2 players because he's just a pawn of the 2 great players, right?
Well, I mean, even the game that George created, Cybas, or however you pronounce it, it's the game, it's the book, it's the show that we're watching. That's that game, Cybas, and it has 2 players on it.
Yeah.
So, and it was something. It's for the book club tonight. But I was reading Davos 2 for Clash of Kings, and they're talking about burning the wooden representations of the 7.
Right.
And they're like, I forget, I got the book in the other room, the notes and everything, where they're talking about take these 7 who are one and the one that is the enemy or something like that. And we're like, wait a minute, there's only 7 idols out there. Who's the extra one that you're talking about?
And that one is the enemy. So the 7 who are one, right, is the 7 aspects of the great other.
Okay.
And that the great other is the enemy, right? So that kind of goes into the whole Order of the Green Hand interpretation that it's R'hllor versus the great other.
Okay, that one went right over my head, then.
Yep. Okay. Anyway, all right, let's get back to it.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say. And one of the things that really makes me come around to the it's not like Bran just playing endlessly against himself, but it's actually there is an opponent on the other side of the board, if you will, is that Arya specifically says that when the dragons are watching someone, that it's somebody who does not love her.
Okay.
So, anyway, this got me thinking that implication is that when they feel the gods watching them or whatever through the dragons, that doesn't represent Bran. That's some sort of, that's not some entity that's an all-loving god. That's an entity that does not love humans.
They hate the iron in their blood.
Yep. Okay, so the heart was steaming in the cool evening air when Khal Drogo set it before her, raw and bloody. His arms were red to the elbow. Behind him, his blood riders knelt on the sand beside the corpse of the wild stallion, stone knives in their hands. The stallion's blood looked black in the flickering orange glare of the torches that ringed the high chalk walls of the pit. So this is the first magic ceremony with Dany destroying a heart, but it won't be the last. There's the red blood looking black. We see that quite a few times in the story. Some people seem to think that means that Beric's blood is black. I don't think Beric's blood is black. I think his blood is red and flowing. If you cut Beric and he bleeds out, he dies and has to be resurrected. So to me, that means he has life functions going on there, right?
I agree 100%.
And there's a lot of blood that flows out in that chapter. But the point is that it has the same black blood symbolism, which then ties it to undead like Cold Hands and so forth, right?
Well, yeah, they're not bringing them back undead. They're putting in live fire.
Right. Right.
So, I mean,
And like you said, you know that because he can be strangled and die and have to be resurrected. But if he's hung, he can be cut and bleed out and have to be resurrected. So the implication is that he actually does have life functions, right?
right. And Mel does not. Mel has black blood. Mel is a different kind of something. Melisandre? Yeah, she's not a
Melisandre
fire white.
maybe, but certainly cold hands.
Yeah. Definitely cold hands, but I think Melisandre is not a fire white.
And there's the implication that Gregor might have. I mean, from Bran's dream and so forth, there's the implication that maybe Gregor might have black blood and so forth too, right?
Well, it was turning black just from the poison alone. So
Right,
I mean,
right.
I imagine even now it's probably even blacker.
There's also you also get some of this the idea of him butchering this animal kind of has a little bit of a Sam flashback telling his story about Randall, which we sort of saw depicted with Tywin in the show.
Yeah.
All right. Dany touched the soft swell of her belly. Chad would just like to point out, this is how we know Dany is pregnant. That's a Preston Jacobs reference who has Chad say that at least once every time Allison touches her belly.
Yeah.
If she choked on the blood or wreshed up the flesh, the omens were less favorable. The child might be stillborn or come forth weak, deformed, or female. Oh no, not female. What a horror. Toward the end, Dany thought she glimpsed a fierce pride in his dark, almond-shaped eyes, but she could not be sure. The cow's face did not often betray the thoughts within. So earlier she described him with a face as still and cruel as a bronze mask. That might even be like her very first description of him.
Yeah.
I suspect she's reading him correctly despite his great poker face.
Well, she's probably been around him long enough now, as any wife can do.
Yeah. She's going to do that again.
Yeah.
There's going to be another time where she mentions that his face looks like a mask, but she thinks she caught him smiling.
Yeah.
Kalaka Dothrai Marana. Whatever. She proclaimed her best Dothraki. A prince rides inside me. She practiced the phrase for days with her handmaid Jiqui. The oldest of the crones, a bent and shriveled stick of a woman with a single black eye, raised her arms on high. Kalaka Dothray, she shrieked. The prince is riding. He is riding, the other woman answered. Rock, rock, rock Haj, they proclaimed. A boy, a strong boy. So the sexism is extreme here, but look at that bent stick, single eye, blood raven symbolism.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you get that even in the history with like Aemon One Eye. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah. This is one. I think this was one that I missed when I was listing all the Odin symbolism, and but it's yet another one. I'm sure there's more that I missed. He is riding, the other woman answered. Rock, rock. Oh, we did that. Okay, sorry, I did that already.
You wanted to say those words again.
Yep. There was something else that I thought was kind of interesting while I was reading it, but all right, whatever. Even a cow as mighty as Drogo could know fear when the Dush Khaleen peered into smoke of the future. So this obviously is foreshadowing from Melisandre and the dangers of prophecy and sorcery.
Right. And on the Dash Khaleen or whatever it is, the one-eyed woman, when she's talking about the baby inside, it says as swift as the wind rides. And we already had the reference of Dany saying.
Oh, we're about to get that.
Oh, we ain't get that yet? Oh, okay. Yep. My bad. Sorry.
I've seen his face and heard the thunder of his hooves, she proclaimed in a thin, wavery voice. The thunder of his hooves, the others chorused. As swift as the wind he rides. Right. And who have we discussed riding like the wind?
Dany. Sorry, man. I don't read yours just because I don't want to taint.
Yeah.
I always wait for the. Yeah,
but it's funny. It's exactly what I had.
Yeah. My bad. Well, at least we're thinking the same. I mean.
Yeah, that was exactly what I thought was the next thing that we should talk about.
Yeah.
And behind him, his Khalasar covers the earth, men without number, with erics shining in their hands like blades of razor grass. I think I saw that on a TV show. Is one of the few things I could see in that episode.
I didn't even get to see that. No, I'm kidding.
I'm kidding. I actually
Hey,
didn't have a problem. I don't have a problem with trying to depict dark as dark. I mean, I get it that people complain if they can't see all the details, um, but I also get that you're trying to capture the specific emotion of characters not being able to see very well and so forth, right? And so there's probably better compromises, and people talk about how the Lord of the Rings I think it's Preston keeps saying that the Lord of the Rings did this well 20 years ago. We ought to be able to get the lighting right by now, and
Yeah.
television. But
Well, I
anyway,
mean, you got movies that involve like caves, the Descent, The Cave, where there's sections of the movies that they only use that little headlight that the people have for the entire lighting of the scene to give it
right,
that spooky.
right.
And so I don't know if that's what they were going for,
Yeah,
but
I think it is. I think they were trying to get the feeling of this eternal darkness has descended upon them, this magical darkness, and they can barely see. And
right.
so they're trying to capture that, but you probably want a little more light so that people can actually see what's going on.
Oh, definitely.
Fierce as a storm, this prince will be, almost as if the prince that was promised might be stormborn.
I got a quick thing on Princess of Promise.
Or the princess that was promised, by what I should have said.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got the last hero, we got the prince that was promised, um, we got Azor High, and now we got the stallion who mounts the world. Are all four of those different people?
I think maybe. So in particular, it feels like um, Jamie and Tywin are serving two different roles. Tywin's the supposed friend showing up at the end of the war,
Yeah.
right? To lift the siege or to aid them or whatever, and that they let him in and think he's a friend. That kind of reminds me of people mistaking Ramsay for a friend and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, maybe there were some rumors that Tywin was dead or something. And then Jamie's really the last hero, right?
Right. That's what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
So I
So
always thought that John was the last hero until yesterday, when it dawned on me. Wait a second, John's been a hero the whole time. I mean, there's no arc making him the hero to be the end of his arc. There's something else for him. The person that has the being crap at the beginning of it, and then slowly working their way to golden hands.
I do have to wonder if John or someone sworn to Dany betraying Dany was sort of told to them, because we do see almost always after each one of these episodes, the person who was leading the forces that were protecting gets immediately betrayed by somebody sworn to them, right? So for example, Ramsay's believed dead. Everybody knows that Ramsay's dead. Ramsay shows up and gets let in. Oh, people often mistake me for a friend. He had already sworn his sword to Theon. He betrays Theon.
Right.
Tyrion is a member of the royal family. Immediately after, the Renly's ghost shows up, and he's the one leading the forces. He's betrayed by the Kingsguard, right? So it does feel like there's a pattern of immediately after the defender has this outside force led by a dead man show up. They get betrayed by the sworn sword. Jamie betrays Ares after Tywin, perhaps having believed him dead, or at the very least, they believed they were dead to him, essentially. He shows up, they let him in, and then Jamie kills the person, the ostensible leader of the defenders of the city. And of course, he's a Kingsguard, right? So there does feel like there's a pattern of the leader of the defense gets betrayed by their sworn sword afterwards. So it makes you wonder if maybe there was something similar to Jon stabbing Dany, that in the way George described the ending. I
just got the flash of Brienne stabbing Stoneheart And you got the supposedly dead Jaime Lannister. I didn't work out all the details.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, she's probably gonna maybe she'll wind up being embedded with Stoneheart and sort of being her sworn sword.
Well, she already is her sworn sword.
Right.
Remember, she gave it to her already.
Yep, you're right. She is her sworn sword. So maybe Jaime at some point shows up with an army, and then she stabs Stoneheart. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
So that's a good theory. I like that.
Thank you.
His enemies will tremble before him, and their wives will weep tears of blood and rend their flesh in grief. The bells in his hair will sing his coming, and the milkmen in the stone tents will fear his name. The old woman trembled and looked at Dany almost as if she were afraid. Trembling represents genuine fear, while looking at Dany. So I do think this might be hinting that in fact the princess that was promised might be Stormborn.
Yeah.
The prince is riding, and he shall be the stallion who mounts the world. So some say this is Drogon, but I think it might be, fire and ice, wolf's blood, and the dragon inside of Dany.
Yeah.
The one-eyed crone peered at Dany. What shall he be called, the stallion who mounts the world? She stood to answer. He shall be called Rhaego. So it's interesting that the woman gets to name the children. This seems to be expected, and certainly Drogo just leaves her to it, doesn't make any recommendations. She comes up with the name herself, right?
Well, I'm assuming, in this male-dominated world, we see the one place that is female-dominated in this chapter. Yep. Dosh Colleen or whatever. I can't pronounce it. I don't know what
you're doing perfectly.
Right. So the women are in charge in that tent.
Well, that's the very next line I have written down. Even the mightiest of cows bowed to the wisdom and authority of the Dosh Colleen. Right. Still, it gave Dany the shivers to think that one day she might be sent to join them, whether she willed it or no. So certainly it's foreshadowing for the idea that she'll outlive Khal Drogo there.
Yeah.
Behind the wise woman came the others. So most of the time we've seen these others, they've been servants sworn to like higher lords or serving of Targaryens or Starks or Lannisters. Yeah. So somebody who's given up some of their free will to serve, which is interesting because the others are actually the leaders who've taken the free will of the whites. So it's kind of strange, but it sure feels like that's what they represent. So maybe that implies, in fact, that the others are serving the great other or something, right?
Right. Well, you got the others, and they're serving the one-eyed woman. We got children of the forest, but they're not.
No, it's the same symbolism we see over and over again, where you've sworn your loyalty to someone, and it's usually like the High Lords, the Targaryens, the Starks, the Lannisters. But in this case, it's the Dosh Colleen. But what's interesting to me is the others we think of as the leaders of the whites. Right. But the fact that the other symbolism is always somebody who themselves has given up their free will to serve somebody above them, that would actually imply that the others are serving the great other, right? And in fact, that's part of what the name means, is the one that the others serve. Right.
Well, in this situation, they're serving a woman, and everybody's jumping on the Night's King kind of bandwagon thing, thanks to the show and everything. But I'm more inclined to think that it's either the Heart of Winter, or the Heart of Winter is the Corpse Queen. So I told you that the theory that from All Hail the Night Queen that about the severing of the arm of Dorne. Well, right. Her original name comes from her theory that All Hail the Night Queen, right? That this is a hive mind kind of situation, and that when you look at them, they behave like insects serving a queen bee or something. And so her point is that the story is about a night queen, and wouldn't it make the most sense if in fact they're serving a queen? Yeah. Well, I was working on. I know it's off topic, but we talked about the others. The reason I got the White Walkers and then the Targaryens. I think they're both created, and then you got the White Walkers. Each one is the twin of the other. But if you look through just the Targaryen history that we've seen so far, we get beautiful prince, beautiful prince, beautiful prince, beautiful prince. I mean, there's not every damn one of them, but I mean, they look a lot alike. They have to be just that gorgeous of a man and the perfect prince. So I'm thinking, okay, in my mind, it's the same thing with the White Walkers. The reason they look so much alike is the same reason that the male perfect prince people look so much alike. Is it has to do with the purity of the blood, that type of
Yeah, that
situation.
makes sense. Sure.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, and it kind of falls to, and Preston's always had this theory that what's really going on there is that that the rites of the first night was actually creating excess bastards of the High Lords, who were probably originally the Greenseer kings, and so you were probably donating Greenseer blood to the White Walkers to maintain the peace. And then you've got the Snowgate, which would mean Bastard Gate, right? And so they were using the Bastard Gate to give the bastards to the White Walkers. And then what they have going on is that they have too much inbreeding, and then he has this whole theory about genetics and not having too much inbreeding, and that's why there's a few of them and things like that.
Right. Well, that would be regardless. The first child that was born would be sacrificed, whether it belonged to the Lord or not. And then the actual firstborn true son that gets the inheritance and everything would actually be the second son that was born, which Bran is the second son that was born. Sorry.
No, could be. Yeah, I've told you I've really come around to your whole you're not wrong theory, right? So I think I think George thinks that. I think George believes that these books are intended to be interpreted in different ways. He expects people to see the different seeds that he plants. He plants seeds in different directions. He hasn't necessarily committed himself in some cases. And so if you tell him R plus L equals J, that's a 100% correct answer. If you tell him John Stark is the one true Stark of the first marriage of Ned Stark, I think he would also say that's a 100% correct answer with the information I've given you so far, right? And that doesn't mean I'm going to go that way. I've planted seeds both directions and that sort of thing, right? I think he himself believes his work is ambiguous and is supposed to be interpreted different ways. And if you were an app designer working on an app for him and you said that the cat's paw was hired by Joffrey, that's one of the interpretations he's expecting the reader to get, and he considers it a valid interpretation. I think he's planted seeds that indicate that's wrong, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't consider that to be a 100% correct, valid interpretation of his work.
I agree.
What is meaning name Rhaego? Khal Drogo asked as they walked, using the common tongue of the Seven Kingdoms. She'd been teaching him a few words when she could. Drogo was quick to learn when he put his mind to it, though his accent was so thick and barbarous that neither Ser Jorah nor Viserys could understand a word he said. Which is kind of a benefit here in this case, right? She can talk to him, and she's the only one that can understand him. My brother Rhaegar was a fierce warrior, my son and stars, she told him. He died before I was born. Ser Jorah says that he was the last of the dragons. Khal Drogo looked down at her. His face was a copper mask. Yet under the long black mustache, drooping beneath the weight of its gold rings, she thought she glimpsed the shadow of a smile. His good name, Dan Aerys. What, Dan Ares, wife, moon of my life, he said. His face is still a mask, but she can spot his smile. It's also interesting that we've got the Ares in there. Anyway, the moon floated on the still black water, shattering and reforming as her ripples washed over it. I still see more moon face scratching symbolism than I do moon shattering symbolism in the books, but this is clearly a moon shattering symbolism.
Right, and then also you get the reference to more black water, black.
Yeah, and we were just and they were just referring to each other as my sun and stars and moon of my life, and we get the whole moon wandering too close to the sun, cracking, and we get the crack that's as loud as the crack of the moon, and the birth of the rebirth of dragons, right?
Yeah.
Drogo spurred his stallion and set off down the God's Way beneath the moon and stars. On her silver, Dany easily kept pace. Drogo, the great horse rider, spurred his stallion, urging him to full speed, and Dany easily kept pace.
She's a horse lord now.
The moon followed them inside, perhaps wandering too close.
There you go.
Dany knew no Eric's would clash tonight, not here in the sacred city where blades and bloodshed were forbidden. Nobody would ever violate sacred customs, norms, or values in these books. No one may carry a blade here or shed a man's blood. Yet men die, she said. Jogo told me. Some of the traders have eunuchs with them, huge men who strangle thieves with wisps of silk. That way no blood is shed and the gods are not angered. Foreshadowing.
There you go.
They're only stones. The same could be said of rubies and diamonds and fire opals, princess, and dragon's eggs are rarer by far. Those traders he's been drinking with would sell their own manhoods for even one of those stones, and with all three, Viserys could buy as many sellswords as he might need. Dany had not known, had not even suspected. Then he should have them. He does not need to steal them. He has only to ask. He is my brother and my true king. He is your brother, Sir Jorah acknowledged. We learned the value of the eggs, and Jorah gets in another dig at Viserys.
Yeah. He's definitely changed his tune from the first time he met Viserys.
My mother died giving me birth, and my father and my brother Rhaegar even before that. Dany's parents' names are only ever used in her chapters when doing so distances them from being her parents, while Rhaegar's name is frequently paired with the term father. The most blatant of these is in Dance, when Dany asks Barristan about her father. If people really understood how writing novels works and paid attention to that conversation, they would realize Rhaegar is Dany's father. For more on Dany's parentage, see episode 4 of Triplet Targaryens. The stallion is the cow of cows, promised in ancient prophecy, child. He will unite the Dothraki into a single Khalasar and ride to the ends of the earth, or so it was promised. All the people of the world will be his herd. Oh, Quentin Martell is the stallion confirmed. The way she says "oh" just reminds me of Quentin and his last thought, right? But anyway, the real point here is, of course, that Dany will unite the Dothraki into a single Khalasar, ride to the ends of the earth and across, right? And or so it was promised, meaning this is in fact the prophecy of the prince that was promised, which as Maester Aemon tells us, it's princess. It's not necessarily prince. It can be princess that was promised. Yeah. So seriously, it's Dany, but the O just made me think of Quentin. A sense of dread closed around her heart. Go to him, she commanded Ser Jorah. Stop him. Bring him here. Tell him he can have the dragon's eggs if that is what he wants. The knight rose swiftly to his feet. So Jorah went to him swiftly, whispered something in his ear, and took him by the arm. But Viserys wrenched free. Khal Drogo says your place is there. Viserys glanced where the cow was pointing, at the back of the long hall, in a corner by the wall, deep in shadow, so better men would not need to look on them, set the lowest of the low. Ser Jorah was standing beside Viserys, screaming in his ear, but the roar of the hall was so thunderous that Dany could not hear what he was saying. Her brother shouted back, and the two men grappled, until Mormont knocked Viserys bodily to the floor. Her brother drew his sword. The bared steel shone a fearful red in the glare from the fire pits. These books are deliberately ambiguous, and I have no idea if Jorah escalated or de-escalated. I suspect our author considers both interpretations valid. I lean towards he escalated based on the fact that they wound up grappling immediately thereafter, right? In the second time. Second time we don't hear what he says.
Yeah, anytime that with George, if you don't hear it, it's bad.
Yeah, and
but
it's the second
symbolism of another red sword there also.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Showed a fearful red in the glare. Yeah, that's a good point. But you need a phone call or something? Is that you? You got a call? We good?
Sorry, my wife was trying to call in and took my volume away.
Yeah. No, that's what I was saying is, hey, you're getting a phone call. Anyway, that's all I'm saying.
1 second, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Nope.
Hello. Are you there?
I'm here. Hold on.
Okay, good. So you can hear me? You good?
No, I can barely hear you.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things I've noticed with StreamYard on mobile is that the volume sometimes is switches to the phone volume instead of the media volume, and you might have to like touch the screen and tell it to after you press the volume. There might be a way to like tap on the screen and change it to be the media volume instead of the phone volume.
Hey, can you pop out and come back in?
Sure.
All right, sorry.
No problem.
He'll be back. Hold on.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Guess not.
Nope. Her phone call messed me up.
Yeah. Well, want me to go through it?
Let me get headphones, see if I can hear you then.
All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Say something.
There she is, he said, smiling.
There we go.
He stalked toward her, slashing at the air as if to cut a path through a wall of enemies, though no one tried to bar his way. The blade! You must not, she begged him. Please, Viserys, it is forbidden. Put down the sword and come share my cushions. There's drink, food. Is it the dragon eggs you want? You can have them, only throw away the sword. Do as she tells you, fool, Sir Jorah shouted, before you get us all killed. Okay, I'm definitely leaning toward a hostility from Jorah.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
He can keep his bloody foal. I'll cut the bastard out and leave it for him. The sword point pushed through her silks and pricked at her navel. Viserys was weeping, she saw, weeping and laughing, both at the same time. This man who had once been her brother. Dany heard her handmaid Jiqui sobbing in fear, pleading that she dared not translate. Don't be afraid, she said. I shall tell him. She did not know if she had enough words, yet when she was done, Khal Drogo spoke a few brusque sentences in Dothraki, and she knew he understood. The son of her life stepped down from the high bench. What did he say? The man who had been her brother asked her, flinching. It had grown so silent in the hall that she could hear the bells in Khal Drogo's hair chiming softly with each step he took. His blood riders followed him, like three copper shadows. Daenerys had gone cold all over. He says you shall have a splendid golden crown that men shall tremble to behold. Viserys smiled and lowered his sword. That was the saddest thing, the thing that tore at her afterward, the way he smiled. Believe it or not, there are people who claim to be fans of these books that think Dany heartlessly killed her brother here. But she is very sad.
Yeah, but that whole time, from that point on, she just refers to him as the man.
Already been doing it. That's already the second time.
Yeah. She'll do it again, I think, 2 more times.
Yeah, yep. That was all I wanted, he said. What was promised? When the son of her life reached her, Dany slid an arm around his waist. The Khal said a word, and his blood riders leapt forward. Kothos seized the man who had been her brother by the arms. Hago shattered his wrist with a single sharp twist of his huge hands. Kaholo pulled the sword from his limp fingers. Even now, Viserys did not understand. No, he shouted. You cannot touch me. I am the dragon, and I will be crowned. You will?
Yeah. During this whole scene, when the first time she starts saying, the man who used to be my brother, she knows that she can't save him. Yeah. So she's distancing.
Oh, he's already killed himself.
She's not trying to kill him. She's distancing her heart from the situation to where she don't cry
she's
right
crying, but she can't. She's still sad, and she's very sad to look back at this.
Yeah.
Khal Drogo unfastened his belt. The medallions were pure gold, massive and ornate, each one as large as a man's hand. He shouted a command. Cook slaves pulled a heavy iron stew pot from the fire pit, dumped the stew onto the ground, and returned the pot to the flames. Drogo tossed in the belt and watched without expression as the medallions turned red and began to lose their shape. She could see fires dancing in the onyx of his eyes. A slave handed him a pair of thick horsehair mittens, and he pulled them on, never so much as looking at the man. Well, we should say that the onyx of his eyes gives him gemstone eyes, which kind of harkens back to the amethyst empress and so forth, right?
Yeah, but I mean, to see fire in the eyes of a Dothraki it's out of place. So it definitely calls you to, because there's those that think that he has Targaryen blood in him,
or at least ancient ancient blood of the Dawn, right? The Empire of the Dawn, perhaps.
Right, because you got the dark Valerian eyes always seem to look onyx sometimes.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it definitely reminds you of Dany's vision of the gemstones and how those match the gemstone emperors.
Yes.
Viserys began to scream the high, wordless scream of the coward facing death. He kicked and twisted, whimpered like a dog, and wept like a child, but the Dothraki held him tight between them. So Jorah had made his way to Dany's side. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Turn away, my princess, I beg you." "No," she folded her arms across the swell of her belly protectively. This reminds me of Jon telling Bran not to look away from the execution.
Yeah.
At the last, Viserys looked at her. "Sister, please. Dany, tell them. Make them. Sweet sister." When the gold was half melted and starting to run, Drogo reached into the flames, snatched out the pot. "Crown," he roared. "Here, a crown for Cart King," and upended the pot over the head of the man who had been her brother. The sound Viserys Targaryen made when that hideous iron helmet covered his face was like nothing human. His feet hammered a frantic beat against the dirt floor, slowed, stopped. Thick globs of molten gold dripped down onto his chest, setting the scarlet silk to smoldering. Yet no drop of blood was spilled. He was no dragon, Dany thought, curiously calm. Fire cannot kill a dragon. Major foreshadowing.
Yes, definitely. But yeah. I mean, her distancing herself from the love she shared for her brother in that instance was just to where she could get through the situations. I mean, she didn't hate him or nothing like that. She was still trying to get him up there to sit down and you can have the eggs and everything, but it was done. It was over. As soon as he walked in that tent, he's doomed.
Yep. And that was the saddest thing, the thing that tore at her afterward, the way he smiled.
Yes.
Anyway.
That is a really good chapter.
Yeah. I deliberately skipped one part that I figured you wouldn't want me to be quoting from.
I appreciate that. There are those out there that can go read it for themselves. No, I mean, I still read it when I was going over the chapter because I don't know where it starts and where it ends. And
it's pretty brief, right? It's depending upon how much of that you consider. I mean, whether the water reaching her lips counts or not. But
yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I love the books, so therefore I have to read all of the books. I can't sit there and pick and choose what I want to read. I got to read everything that George intended for me to see. So
anyway, like you said, it's a really interesting chapter with lots of interesting foreshadowing and symbolism and prophecy and
it is definitely a lot more foreshadowing than I remembered in the chapter for sure.
Oh yeah.
For some reason, this read, either I'm looking at it more carefully because I know I'm going over it with you.
Yeah, that's definitely the case with me.
Any other read I've had, it's just
yeah, I think that's true.
I don't want to look like a complete idiot.
Well, we're going straight back to Eddard yet again.
Yeah. Hey.
Before we got the whole jump away from Eddard for one chapter and jump back.
Yeah. I get scared every time I see his name in the book because I know it's coming. Oh wait, it's not through his chapter that we see that. Okay, never mind. It's through Arya's. Isn't it Arya's that we see his beheading? Or is it Sansa? You still there? Uh-oh. I lost you, man. Well, hell. I guess I got to end this thing myself because I can't see him or hear him now.
Oh, left my old one in there.
Oh, wow.
I left it, came back, and it left the old one in there. That's interesting.
I am not having very good technical. As soon as she called in on this thing, it just... it's just a phone. It can only do so much. Oh, you got rid of me.
I can take over.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get rid of my old one, but I can take over.
That's okay. It's kind of funny.
Oh well.
Every now and then I'll get where my head on there will just stay in one position, frozen for a second.
Can you actually remove the middle one?
Let me see on the
tap on it. Yeah, you did. Okay, cool. Or it cleared it out. Either you did it, or it just finally figured out that connection wasn't there anymore.
It had to be the exact same time that I touched the screen because something happened.
Okay.
So
cool.
I'm not really good technically, so it was sheer luck.
So what happened there? Your connection got disrupted or something?
I have no idea. You just completely froze, and I didn't see you move at all. I didn't see any sound whatsoever. It was just gone.
It went black, so I ducked out and ducked back in, and then there were two of me.
There's only one of you, please. Two's too many.
I could be Michael Keaton in Multiplicity.
There you go. That's a really good movie too. But okay, that was a really good chapter. As Fridays, we always wish the watchers to have a very good weekend, a safe weekend. We're no-go for Monday, right?
Yeah, probably. My project meeting's scheduled for that, so yep.
No, it's not a problem. We'll plan for Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, at our chapters, it just gets sadder and sadder. So I'm not in a big hurry to read this one, anyways.
Yeah. This is the Renly and Littlefinger make their somewhat dishonorable offers to Ned, and he can't accept, which is too bad because would have been nice.
I think Renly was sincere, but I think Littlefinger he knew he wasn't going to accept, but he just had to make it sound like he was trying to help him out. But okay. Y'all have a good weekend. Stay safe. I have been Old New Dude. He has been
Richard York, Asher's Trueborn Son.
Y'all have a good weekend. Stay safe. Bye.